Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Precognition is a subject that causes people to get headaches.
Yes.
Sometimes it seems to be full of paradoxes, and yet, as we have talked about on this program before, there's a wealth of empirical evidence supporting the reality of precognition.
Yes.
And what we're going to look at now is how can we begin to model it?
Or, better question, how does ESP, or how does precognition actually work?
Yeah.
That's a real tough question. And I don't mean this in a flippant answer, but the three most important words in science are, I don't know. Given I've said that, we have some ideas about how to move forward with it. The best way to think about it, how can you see the sunset while you're sitting on the beach in Hawaii? How does that work? You know, I'm pretty lazy as a physicist. What we'd like to do is to see by analogy what can we use for things that we think we understand and import it into a new model.
Well, we do know a lot about conventional sensory mechanisms.
Exactly. So you're sitting on the beach, what happens? The sun is going into the Pacific, it's really beautiful. And what is the sun doing? It's signaling to you. And how does it do that? It sends photons to you. It takes about 8 minutes for them to travel from the sun to here.
Yeah.
It hits your retina. The retina has a fiber nerve, the optic nerve that goes all the way to the back of your head. And even then at that moment, a tenth of a second later, you don't know you've seen anything. But a quarter of a second later, voila, you see the sunset. How that actually happens in the head, there's a technical name called visual binding, but don't worry, it's a very tough problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would ESP work or precognition work? By analogy. Well, there's something that's signaling from the future. How that happens is a real tough problem. We'll get to it in a minute. Let's just assume that you have in your head, for lack of a better term, a psychic retina. And so that psychic photon, if you will, hits your psychic retina, and it gets absorbed in the brain like a real photon does, and voila, you have an experience which we call precognition. Well, that's a rough analogy. Let's look more details.
Okay.
We have no idea what would constitute a psychic retina.
It's important to get that out.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a real tough one.
There may not be. People have attempted to find organs of psychic perception.
They have indeed, and guess what? They haven't worked yet.
No. So it might be the whole nervous system.
It might be. Even there were some ideas in Russia from the 67 that the whole body is the psychic retina, if you will.
I'm inclined to think that the body as a whole functions as a psychic antenna.
Well, that would be nice if it did.